All right, check out this first story from Timcast.com. EU to impose mandatory electricity cuts to flatten the curve, reduce peak energy demands. European Commission had announces Russian price caps as Putin threatens to cut Europe off from all energy deliveries. The European Union has announced plans for mandatory electricity rationing, with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen telling reporters the EU must flatten the curve of peak energy prices. Her announcement highlighted a 5-point plan the EU is preparing to enact to address local energy markets. Europe has faced an energy crisis following Russia cutting off supplies of natural gas. The funny thing is, Russia is now selling gas to China, who's driving it all the way back to Europe and cranking up the cost. And now people are looking at like 500% energy increases. Italy, you've got bars and restaurants with candles. And when you look over at California, and they're doing the exact same thing. It kind of feels like what's happening there is going to happen here, and we're just a little bit behind. But I know, Amala, you live in California, right? How's that been?
Unfortunately, I do live in Los Angeles. So last night I was chilling in my apartment and got a notification that says, due to our overwhelmed electrical grid, your electricity might go out at any moment. And you're going to have to deal with that for an hour or two. We'll rotate it across our different circuits. And welcome to the New World Order here.
But your power didn't go out?
It didn't end up going out, but I guess they're putting out warnings that through this continuous heat wave that we're going through right now, that there's a very good possibility that it's going to happen. And in other regions of California, they're doing those rotating brownouts.
Ooh, you saw Gavin Newsom though, right?
Yes,
He was wearing the fleece sweater. That was awesome.
Tim. He's cold. Cool. Yeah, he's cold. Okay.
Maybe he's like it could be that he's a lizard person, and then it's like it may be hot, but yes, it still needs to.
I like that he's gotten like really crazy tattoos of late. Yeah. He has to hide them.
Yeah. he rips his sleeves off, and he's just got sleeves.
Scale. Yeah.
So it's basically after 4 p.m. I heard Gavin did a video. Maybe this is the video you're referencing. After 4 p.m., that's like hot time. That's like peak electricity. You turn off your everything except for your large appliances.
Yeah, they're saying basically try not to use AC if you can help it. Cool your house or your apartment beforehand. Don't turn on any larger or major appliances, anything like that, and certainly don't charge your electric cars, even though we're going to start banning gas vehicles in the coming years.
Have you heard of passive cooling? You ever studied any of that stuff?
No,
I haven't. They make like these I don't know if they're made out of wood or out of cork, and then they'll like make all these little like cuts through the cork, and then you just pour water into the cork, and then it only works in really dry environments.
Okay.
But through I don't know what
evaporation.
Evaporation. It cools down the room by like 10 to 15 degrees.
The water absorbs the heat from the atmosphere to.
It'll get you from like 105 to 90 maybe. It's for desperate hot dry climates.
Does this fit in a studio apartment?
Definitely.
The question.
Yeah, it's a little box. You could probably make one from cardboard.
We're gonna have to start getting creative.
Low energy evaporation air conditioners. You fill them with water, and then it basically.
Yep. Recently just bought one of those, although I don't know after 4 p.m. if we can even have those on.
Here's a question. Why don't you leave Los Angeles?
Oh, you're getting into tricky territory here. So I do work for PragerU. We're headquartered in Los Angeles.
It's Dennis's fault.
We're there. Dennis, who you had on the show, he's like, I am not leaving California. He's like, I'm perfectly fine being in California. And I get it.
He's also wearing a sweater. He's good to go.
Yeah. Dennis is chilling. And I will say that being in the heart of all the problems does really get you invigorated every day to be in the fight. When you're walking out of your apartment and a homeless man screams obscenities at you, you're ready to work every single day.
Yeah, that's fair.
You have to learn you got to learn self-defense.
Yeah.
You've also got to learn, tactical poop cleanup.
I'm
you never know if you're going to step in it.
I'm 120 pounds soaking wet, so self-defense is something I need to work on. 100%.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Where were you before LA?
Florida.
Oh,
what? Why did you do that?
You know what? I like to think I thought it through. It was a fantastic opportunity. I love my job so much, so it's totally worth it. Don't get me wrong. But leaving the freedom state of Florida to go to LA, which has just been disintegrating in front of my eyes, has been an interesting experience.
You're on the front lines.
On the front lines.
You left the comfort. I'm just imagining you. Yep. You're at home in Florida, and you tell your family, and you salute them, and you're like, I'm going to the front line. Yeah. You're like, dude, you're crazy. I'm going. And then you go to California, where it's really bad.
It's hilarious because my mom is a super radical left-leaning person, so she would love to have switched from Florida to move over to Los Angeles, and we've sort of taken our opposite paths.
Your mom is radical left?
Because you said you were too, right?
I was too, yeah.
So did you appreciate Florida while you were there? Or were
no.
you like, this place is awful?
It's like, I hate this place.
Did you get hit in the head with a turtle shell or something and then just knocked sense into you, or what happened?
You know what? So I grew up, my mom works for the political left. Hi, Mom. She's not watching, but hi, Mom. Definitely not watching. So I grew up with her influence, and I was constantly told about the oppression that I was going to face living in America. She happens to be white, so she was telling me about, like, you're black. It's going to be a little bit difficult for you. Things are going to be hard. And I totally fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Graduated high school, started working as a youth organizer and door knocking and telling people who they needed to vote for. I worked on the Andrew Gillum campaign in Florida. Yeah, we all know how that turned out. Like, luckily, my efforts went unnoticed on that, and eventually just recognized so much hypocrisy that I had to leave and started looking at other views.
What made you realize, like, what was the moment that you realize something?
Yeah, so I grew up with my white family, and I was constantly going to work and hearing about how awful white people were, and there were several instances where it was just the most blatant racist rhetoric you could hear regarding somebody, all towards white people. And I would go and work on these projects and then go home to my white family that had taken care of me my entire life. And I eventually confronted one of the VPs at the organization and said, I don't get it, man. We said we're tolerant. We said we're anti-racist. We're literally working on these, like, critical race theory initiatives. And he basically told me, you don't know how oppressed you are. And that's not my fault.
So is, like, half your family black, half your family white?
Yes.
I wonder, because I have a similar experience. I come from a mixed race family, so I'm a quarter Asian, and my experience was similar in that I go out and I hear these lefties saying things like white people are bad, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, like, I got white family and not white family, and I'm pretty sure you're full of shh. You know what I mean?
Ish, yeah.
Yeah, like this, and then what I end up actually seeing growing up is the policies they put in place, they claim help racism, actually just end up hurting my family, and my family was the epitome of, like, opposing racism.
Right. 100%. I went through the exact same experience. I actually grew up in a really rural, conservative, small town. Never truly experienced an ounce of racism in my life, but was so dedicated to the idea that I was oppressed in this country that I, like, fought people about it. And I basically labeled myself as a victim and went around the world telling everybody about how victimized I was.
But so when you go to your family and you're like, hey, I don't believe this stuff because, like, you know, we're a mixed family, and clearly the white people in my family are good people. This is not true. Yeah.
Well, so my mom and dad got divorced when I was 6, so I was basically just with my mother's influence. And I went to her and I was like, hey, Mom, I think I might be a little conservative. And she hated it. And we went through...
What's the liberal equivalent of sprinkling you with holy water?
Yeah.
Like, I need to help you.
She's like, what can I do to stop this from happening? Because I was like her little protege in a lot of ways, working at the same organization she was working for. So, you know, her head blew through the roof, and we went through months of just contentious arguments over all these different subject matters. And eventually she was like, okay, this is my daughter. I think she's pretty strong-willed about what she believes right now, and I'm just going to leave it alone. Maybe we don't talk politics.
Yeah, I went through something similar with my mom, and I realized after like 5 or 6 years that it was more about the tone that we were communicating. It was more about, you know, less about trying to be right or just listening.
But Ian Red pilled his mom.
Yeah, but it took 12 years, and it was like our relationship almost ended, and she got really sick from stress. Like, it was horrible. When you go at it and you're like obsessed with trying to convince someone, they can get really, really ill. It can really hurt people. So the best is just to exist and listen. And
the cult, the cult is scary.
I agree. Yeah. I realized that just through living my life with my values, I think it would sort of influence her a little bit. Like, she's now come around and said, you know what? I think I'm comfortable being friends with people who are conservative, which for her, it's a big step. I mean, when I say she's a radical leftist, I mean as far left as you could possibly be. So yeah.
But like authoritarian or libertarian?
Probably authoritarian.
Crazy.
Authoritarian.
Because like the libertarian left, in my opinion, doesn't really exist. Like they do, but it's such an impossible political standard that most people on the left abandon it. Right. But then claim their libertarian left to try and win votes so that they can then enslave you. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean, with all the policing you want to do of people's speech and how they act and what they do, it's hard not to be authoritarian in that sense.
Do you know political compass memes? There's like a couple different pages.
Oh, is it like the little test that you take that puts you in the chart?
Yeah. The memes are hilarious. And it's like one place on the internet where they actually understand what the political compass actually means. And you'll actually see like the left and the right arguing with each other, but laughing at these jokes. And I did a mini rant once where I said, woke people are not libertarian left. Every single time people come out and talk about Antifa or something, they claim it's a libertarian left. And I'm like, dude, it is not libertarian to go around bashing people over the skull, demanding they live the way they want you to live. That's authoritarian left. Libertarian left is like hippies living on a farm being like, you want to share this watermelon with me, dude? The problem is supporting that is extremely difficult and it doesn't scale very well. But the political compass memes people were like, Tim is correct. And they put my face on the liberal left quadrant arguing why Antifa and woke people are not libertarian left. And everybody agreed. Amazing. Like all these different people were like, yeah, that's literally like woke people are authoritarian, commie, socialist types.
Right. As soon as you start trying to impose your worldview on anybody, you can't call yourself a libertarian.
Right. That's why it was really funny when... was it Jorgensen, the libertarian candidate, said...
Joe Jorgensen.
Joe Jorgensen said, it's not enough to not be racist. We must be actively anti-racist.
Insane.
Yeah.
So
But I was like, the libertarian candidate telling people what they must do is deliciously ironic.
what is the libertarian version of wokeness?
Well, wokeness is ideological.
Yeah.
So there's no if you were woke and you were a libertarian, you'd say something like, I think, critical race theory and these things are good. How can we, work with each other on trying to implement what I agree with? And then they say, I disagree with you. And it's like, oh, okay, well, we disagree. Let's figure out how to live together. See, I totally get along with those people. I met a communist guy. He I was in Berkeley. He denounced Antifa. He said the violence is wrong. They shouldn't be doing that. He's like, true communism would be us living together, working together. And I was like, oh, we're friends. I was like, bro, you can be a communist. I don't care as long as you're not bashing people over the skull, And
it really is as simple as that. And they think we're far worse than that. They make us out to be these horrible villains. But really, I'm like, you can believe whatever you want to believe. Just please don't come into my territory and impose it on me.
Right.
But that's how a lot of woke ideology works. It
Right.
needs compliance and it needs you to agree to be a part of it. If anyone questions it, then their system is broken.
Yep.
And that's unacceptable.
That's what I love about like this weird world where the mainstream corporate press calls every single person far right or right wing. And it's like, it's just so weird that every single ideological viewpoint is right wing. Like all of them. If you're a communist and you're woke, you're left. But if you're a communist and you're not woke, you're far right. If you're a socialist and you're anti-corporate, you're far right. Jimmy Dore, who's like a socialist, is right wing. That one blew my mind. I'm like, okay, y'all jumped. Look, you want to come at me and say Tim Pool's right wing or whatever, I'll bet you can make an argument about center right or something, even though I'm like in the middle. But Jimmy Dore, he's like universal health care and like all these other left policies. But then he goes, the Democrats and the Republicans are corporatists who are selling you out. And like, nah, he's far right.
Right, but they just move the center to a place where they're like, look, all the way over there is extreme far right, whereas it wouldn't have been, a decade ago, 2 decades ago. We just migrated it so far that we don't understand where the middle is at all.
We just got to ignore them.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
I love
the
that idea.
buzzwords. Kind of let the buzzwords flow through you. The alt, the left, the right, the authoritarian, the libertarian. Like you don't fall into a group. Like we're not putting you in a holding cell right now because of what label we slapped on your chest. It doesn't. That stuff's not relevant in humanity. Jimmy's a great example of that because he talks so much. You see the intricacies of who he is, and he doesn't. He's way all over the place. He believes what he believes.
Right.
Jimmy is left. I just think we have to ignore what the cult thinks because the woke cult is not left or right. This is what I was saying. Some people don't agree, but I'm like, sterilizing your kids is not a left wing or right wing position. It is of the left right now, but the left is like it's usually a reference to revolutionary or economically flat systems. Communism, for instance, the furthest left you go on the political compass, whereas right is laissez-faire capitalism. That's the economic scale.
Yeah, I think Jimmy is a bit revolutionary. He's got that revolutionary state of mind, but I can tell that he appreciates like the state when it functions properly. He likes that kind of stuff, and he's willing to use the state to accommodate people.
And that's more authoritarian versus libertarian, the state versus, no state. And the thing that always confused me is when they say like laissez-faire capitalists are far right and so are Nazis. And I'm like, but they completely disagree on like everything. How does that make sense? What does that even mean? And they say things like, they're always trying to redefine what left and right is in order to justify why you're not left or whatever. So I'm just like,
we got to be careful about putting people in camps. That's what that is the first step on the path to putting people in camps is giving them labels and putting them in a consciousness box.
When it comes to, I think cult is often a good word. I know it's a strong word, but it's a good word because as soon as you start to deviate on even one single issue, they throw you out and label you as something. And language is so powerful for the woke left in particular, the way they manipulate it, the way they utilize it in order to put people in certain groups groups and label them. And as soon as we go, I'm not going to accept the label and I'm not going to take that, I think is when we start changing the game a little bit.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.